"Stop this wedding!" The scream tore through the grand ballroom of the Woodland Country Club like a gunshot. 300 guests in silk and diamonds spun around in their seats. Standing in the center aisle was a 14-year-old black girl, skinny and shaking, clutching a battered leather satchel to her chest. A woman in pearls yelled, "Security! There's a little thief loose in the ballroom." Security lunged forward, but no one reached her because the groom, the handsome silver-haired man in a $5,000 tuxedo, had already seen her face. His charm vanished. His smile collapsed. His skin went ashen. He recognized this child, and he bolted, sprinting for the exit like a man who had just seen his own grave open. What did a 14-year-old black girl from Baltimore, Maryland know that made a grown man abandon his own wedding? And what was hidden inside that old leather satchel? Now, hold on. That moment right there changed everything. Let's get into it. Before that scream echoed through the Woodland Country Club, Jada Thompson was sitting on the floor of a one-bedroom apartment in Baltimore, Maryland, braiding her own hair because the only person who ever did it for her was gone. Jada was 14, with skinny arms, large dark eyes that noticed everything, and a quietness most people mistook for shyness. It was not shyness. It was observation. She sat in the front row of every class at Lincoln Middle School, read books meant for college students, and taught herself spreadsheets from YouTube tutorials. She kept the household budget in a color-coded Excel file that would have impressed an accountant. Her teachers called her the little professor. Her classmates called her nothing because most of them pretended she did not exist. She lived with her grandmother, Evelyn Thompson, a retired schoolteacher whose arthritis had curled her fingers like old roots, and whose faith was the only thing holding the roof over their heads. Evelyn kept a Bible on her nightstand and a photograph of her daughter on the wall. The daughter she had just buried. Lena Thompson, Jada's mother. Lena had worked long shifts as an ICU nurse at Baltimore Medical Center, holiday rotations, double overtimes, weekends she never saw. She was the kind of woman who stayed extra hours with a dying patient so they would not be alone, then came home and braided her daughter's hair with hands that still smelled like hospital soap. Kind, trusting, and after years of raising Jada alone, deeply lonely, she met a man online. He called himself Grant Evans. Grant was white, well-spoken, and carried himself like a man who had never worried about money. He talked about yacht clubs and business ventures and a future where Lena would never work another night shift. He brought flowers. He remembered Jada's birthday. He looked Lena in the eyes and told her she deserved to be loved. And she believed him because after years of giving love to everyone else, someone was finally giving it back. But Grant Evans was not giving. He was taking. He told Lena about a medical technology startup, cutting-edge devices, government contracts, guaranteed returns. He showed documents with official letterheads. He introduced a business partner over video call, probably a man in a rented room reading a script. He even took her to an office in downtown Baltimore with his name on the door, a short-term lease paid with another woman's money. Lena invested everything. The money she had saved over years of overtime pay, skipped vacations, birthday cash set aside, and finally a second mortgage on the only home Jada had ever known. Before long, Grant Evans vanished. Phone disconnected, office empty, the business partner, the startup, the name itself. None of it existed. Lena tried the police. The officer listened briefly and asked if she had maybe just sent money to a boyfriend. She tried the bank. Transfers were authorized. Nothing to reverse. She sat in the parking lot of Baltimore Medical Center, the place where she had saved lives for years and realized no one was going to save hers. She wrote a letter to Jada. She explained everything. She apologized not for loving someone, but for trusting the wrong one. She described one detail she noticed too late. The man had a small crescent-shaped scar behind his left ear, and she wrote words that Jada would carry like a second heartbeat for the rest of her life. Baby girl, don't you ever let anyone tell you your mama was stupid. She was just a woman who believed in love, and believing in love should never be a crime. After writing that letter, Lena Thompson was found in her car by the Patapsco River. She was gone. Jada found the letter in her mother's bedside drawer that same night. She read it repeatedly before sunrise. Then she opened her laptop, created a new spreadsheet, and titled it, Finding Him. She had no money, no connections. No one who believed a black girl from Baltimore could find a ghost. But she had her mother's letter, her mother's love, and a fury so quiet it could melt steel. The man who destroyed her mother was already out there, new name, new smile, hunting his next victim. He had no idea the hunt had just reversed. Jada's first stop was the Baltimore Police Department. She walked in one afternoon carrying a folder of printouts, screenshots, bank records, a timeline she had built herself. The officer at the front desk, a thick man named Hayes, looked at her the way people look at a stray dog that wandered into a restaurant. He did not ask her to sit down. He did not offer water. He glanced at her braids, her worn shoes, her second-hand jacket, and said, "Can I help you?" Jada explained calmly, clearly. Her mother had been defrauded by a man using a false identity. She had documentation. She needed to file a report. Officer Hayes flipped through a few pages of her folder without reading a single one. Then he closed it. "Sweetheart, you need to have an adult come in and file this. We can't take a report from a minor." Jada told him her grandmother could barely walk. Hayes shrugged. Policy is policy. She came back later with Evelyn, who had taken 2 buses and climbed the steps on swollen knees to reach the detective's office. Detective Carla Benson was kinder. She actually read the documents. She nodded in the right places. And then she said, "Honey, without a real name, a current address, or bank cooperation, there's really nothing we can do. I'm sorry." She wrote inactive across the top of the file and placed it on a stack of identical folders. Jada counted them. There were dozens. Dozens of women. Dozens of ghosts. Dozens of dead ends collecting dust on a metal shelf. Nobody cared. The humiliation followed her to school. Word spread the way it always does in small communities. Fast and cruel. 2 girls, Brianna and Kayla, made sure Jada heard them in the cafeteria. Her mama gave their rent money to some man off the internet. Brianna said loud enough for 3 tables to hear. Kayla laughed. That's what happens when you're that desperate. The table erupted. Jada sat alone, gripping her pencil until her knuckles turned white, staring at her tray, saying nothing. A teacher walked past. She heard the laughter. She saw Jada sitting alone. She kept walking. That night, Jada added a new tab to her spreadsheet. Victims, other women. She began her own investigation. Public records, reverse image searches, social media archives. She was methodical, precise, tireless. She discovered that Grant Evans had used his dating profile photo on a real estate website in Charlotte under a different name, Greg Ellis. Different name, same face. And in one photo, barely visible behind his left ear, the crescent-shaped scar. Jada found an online forum for romance fraud survivors. She posted details about Grant Evans anonymously. Before long, 4 women from 4 different states had sent her private messages. Each one had been conned by a man matching the same description. Gerald Evans in Atlanta, a huge amount taken. Graham Ellis in Tampa, even more taken. Gavin Evans in Raleigh, another fortune taken. Every name was different. Every name starting with the same two initials, G.E. Every story was identical. Lonely woman, charming man, medical startup, vanished. Jada organized everything into a detailed document. Photos, timelines, financial records, cross-references, and brought it back to Detective Benson. Benson was genuinely impressed. She spent time reading it. Then she looked up and said, "Jada, this is federal territory. You'd need the FBI." Jada asked for the number. She called from her grandmother's kitchen phone. She was put on hold, transferred multiple times. Finally, a weary voice told her to submit a tip through IC3, the Internet Crime Complaint Center. Jada submitted the tip that same night. She received an automated confirmation email. Then, nothing. Days of nothing. Weeks of nothing. Silence so thick it felt like the entire federal government had looked at a 14-year-old black girl's cry for help and simply pressed delete. Then came the worst blow. Jada discovered that the man, her mother's killer, was now in Darien, Connecticut, using the name Garrett Ellis. He was engaged to Brooke Harrington, daughter of Victor Harrington, the billionaire real estate developer. Jada found the engagement announcement in a society magazine, a glossy full-page photo of a smiling couple at a charity gala. The man was tanned, silver-haired, wearing a suit that cost more than Lena Thompson earned in a month. Behind his left ear, barely visible in the photo, the scar. Jada wrote a letter to Brooke, detailed, evidence-backed, desperate. She mailed it certified, return receipt requested, spending what little she had saved from mowing lawns. Later, a response arrived. Not from Brooke, from Victor Harrington on embossed letterhead that probably cost more than the stamp Jada used. "Young lady, I don't know who put you up to this pathetic stunt, but if you contact my daughter again, I will have our attorneys ensure you regret it. Garrett Ellis is a respected businessman and a cherished member of this family. Your baseless accusations are disturbing and, frankly, given your background, not surprising. Do not write to this address again. Given your background." Jada read those 3 words over and over. She knew exactly what Victor Harrington meant. Not her background as a child, not her background as an orphan. Her background as a black girl, a poor black girl. A poor black girl who dared to accuse a rich white man in a world where rich white men are always believed and poor black girls are always ignored. The police dismissed her. The FBI forgot her. A billionaire threatened her. And the man who stole her mother's life was about to do it again in a country club where the cheapest bottle of wine cost more than Evelyn Thompson's monthly Social Security check. Every door, every single door had slammed in her face. This part right here really got to me. You had a 14-year-old girl out here doing more than the police, the FBI, and a whole billionaire. Like, how does that even make sense? And they still looked at her like she was nothing. That's crazy to me. So now think about it. You're 14. You're by yourself. Every single door just keeps shutting on you. Be real. Most people would be done right there. That night, Jada pinned Victor Harrington's letter to her bedroom wall, right next to the wedding announcement. She stared at them both. The billionaire's threat on the left, the con man's smile on the right. She opened her laptop. She opened a new spreadsheet tab and titled it The Wedding Plan. The wedding was coming up. And if the police would not stop it, if the FBI would not stop it, if a billionaire could threaten a child and face no consequences, then a 14-year-old girl from Baltimore, Maryland, with a leather satchel, and her dead mother's letter, would stop it herself. Jada needed 3 things to stop that wedding: proof that Garrett Ellis was a fraud, testimony from his other victims, and a way inside the Woodland Country Club. She started with the proof. Garrett Ellis's name appeared on a Delaware LLC, a shell company registered to a P.O. box in Wilmington, Delaware, the state where anyone could hide behind a corporate filing and a mailbox. But Jada had learned something from months of digging through public records. Every P.O. box has a paper trail. She cross-referenced the box number with a database of UPS store locations and found that the box had been opened with a driver's license. She submitted a Freedom of Information request written in formal legal language she had copied from a legal aid website, revised until it sounded like a lawyer wrote it. Later, a redacted document arrived. The license number was blacked out, but the physical description was not. It matched Grant Evans. It matched Greg Ellis. It matched every ghost this man had ever been. Jada printed the document and slid it into her mother's leather satchel. Next, the victims. She contacted the 4 women from the online forum: Sharon Miller in Charlotte, Linda Brooks in Atlanta, Deborah Wilson in Tampa, Karen Bailey in Raleigh. She sent each of them the same message: "My name is Jada. I'm 14 years old. This man killed my mother. I need your help to stop him before he does it again." 3 of them responded quickly. The 4th, Deborah Wilson, called Jada directly, sobbing before she even said hello. Jada conducted video interviews using her grandmother's old tablet propped against a stack of textbooks on her bedroom desk. Each woman told the same story: the charm, the startup, the promises, the money disappearing. Each woman had lost a fortune. 2 of them had tried to end their own lives. All 4 of them had gone to police. All 4 had been ignored. Jada recorded every interview. She organized the testimonies chronologically, tagged each one with dates, dollar amounts, and the alias used. She stored everything on a USB drive and placed it inside the satchel next to the FOIA document next to her mother's letter. The satchel was getting heavier. Worn brown leather. Initials LT embossed on the flap. Lena Thompson, with a small tear on the strap that Jada had repaired with dental floss. It was the last birthday gift her mother ever bought herself. Now, it carried enough evidence to destroy the man who destroyed her. Then, Jada did something that changed everything. She rewrote her IC3 submission, not the scattered tips she had filed before. This time, she compiled a thorough document, organized like a federal case file. Subject header: Serial Romance Fraud. Subject: Leon Kramer. Below it, 6 aliases listed chronologically: Grant Evans, Greg Ellis, Gerald Evans, Graham Ellis, Gavin Evans, Garrett Ellis. Each alias linked to a victim, a city, a dollar amount, and a timeline. Cross-referenced photos. Financial transfer patterns. The crescent scar documented in separate images across 3 states. She submitted it on a Sunday night from her grandmother's kitchen table. Soon after, her phone rang. The caller ID said, Washington, D.C., FBI Special Agent Rachel Bennett, White Collar Crime Division. Her voice was careful, measured, the voice of a woman who had spent years investigating fraud and thought she had seen everything. "Jada, I've reviewed your submission. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Did someone help you build this file? A lawyer? An investigator?" "No, ma'am. Just me." Silence on the line. Then Bennett said quietly, "I've been doing this for years. I have never seen a civilian case file this thorough. The fact that a teenager built it, I don't even know what to say." The FBI opened a formal investigation that same week, but Bennett was honest. Building a prosecutable case would take time, subpoenas, warrants. bank records, bureaucracy. The wedding was approaching fast. Jada said, "He's going to marry that woman. Take her money and vanish. We don't have time." Bennett paused. Then she said the words that lit the fuse. "If you can get him to reveal his true identity in front of witnesses, that gives us probable cause for an immediate arrest. We'd have agents on standby." Jada had a short window to get inside the most exclusive wedding in Darien, Connecticut, and make a con man unmask himself in front of 300 people. She was 14. She was black. She was broke. And she was the only person on earth who could stop him. How? Jada spent days researching the Woodland Country Club like she was planning a military operation. She learned that the club hired temporary staff for large events through an agency called Elite Event Services. Elite posted listings on a local staffing website. Jada could not apply. She was 14. But buried in Elite's FAQ page, she found one sentence that changed everything. Elite partners with local schools to offer community service volunteer positions at qualifying charity events. The Harrington wedding included a charity auction, a tax write-off Brooks' family had attached to the reception. That made it a qualifying event. Jada spent time studying Darien Academy's community service program, their requirements, their forms, their language. Then she called Elite Event Services, introduced herself as a sophomore at Darien Academy, and volunteered for the wedding. The woman on the phone did not ask for ID. She did not ask for a photo. She asked Jada's shirt size. Small. Jada was assigned to coat check. Getting there was the next problem. A one-way Greyhound ticket from Baltimore to Darien cost money she did not have. She spent the next stretch of days mowing neighbors' lawns and selling her old textbooks to a second-hand bookstore. The owner gave her what she needed for the books and said, "You sure you don't want to keep these, honey? A smart girl like you?" Jada shook her head. She needed the bus more than she needed the books. She told Evelyn she was going on a school field trip to Washington, D.C. It was the first lie she had ever told her grandmother, and it sat in her stomach like a stone. But she knew with absolute certainty that if she told Evelyn the truth, Evelyn would stop her. Evelyn would say it was too dangerous. Evelyn would say, "Let the FBI handle it." And the FBI needed time they did not have. The night before she left, Jada packed her mother's satchel, the USB drive, the printed evidence, the FOIA document, the victim's testimonies, and at the very bottom, folded carefully inside a plastic sandwich bag to protect it from rain, Lena's letter. She zipped the satchel shut and held it against her chest. "I'm coming, Mama," she whispered. "I'm almost there." Miles away, in a private dining room at the Darien Yacht Club, the man who called himself Garrett Ellis was raising a glass of fine wine at his rehearsal dinner. He was magnificent. That was the sickening truth. He stood at the head of a mahogany table, guests hanging on his every word, telling a story about his years in London finance, a career that never existed in a city he had visited once. His voice was warm, his timing perfect. His cufflinks, gold monogram GE, caught the candlelight as he gestured. Brooke Harrington sat beside him, her hand on his arm, her eyes shining with the absolute trust of a woman who believed she had found the love of her life. Her father, Victor, clapped Garrett on the shoulder and said, "Best thing that ever happened to this family." The table applauded. Later, Garrett excused himself to take a phone call in the hallway. His voice dropped. The warmth vanished. "Everything's handled. After the honeymoon, we moved the funds to the offshore account. 6 months tops." He ended the call, adjusted his tie, walked back into the dining room with a smile so perfect it could have been painted on. Nobody at that table knew they were applauding a predator, but a girl on a Greyhound bus did. Jada arrived in Darien early in the morning. She had slept upright for the long ride with the satchel on her lap. She walked from the bus station to the Woodland Country Club, along roads lined with hedges taller than her apartment building back home. Every house she passed was bigger than her entire block in Baltimore. The driveways had gates. The lawns had sprinkler systems that probably cost more than her grandmother's annual income. She arrived at the service entrance in black pants and a white shirt, the volunteer uniform she had been emailed. She was the only black person on the catering staff. A supervisor named Donna handed her a clipboard and pointed toward the foyer. Coat check. Smile at the guests. Don't speak unless spoken to. And for God's sake, keep that bag out of sight. Jada nodded. Yes, ma'am. She hid the satchel behind the coat rack. Then she stood at her station and waited. The guests began arriving. Black Mercedes, white Bentleys, silver Rolls Royces. Women in gowns that cost more than Lena Thompson earned in a year stepped through the foyer and handed Jada their coats without looking at her. One woman dropped a fur stole on the counter and walked away mid-sentence. She was on the phone laughing and did not register Jada's existence at all. Another woman looked Jada up and down slowly, top to bottom, and said to her companion, "They're really scraping the bottom of the barrel with the help these days, aren't they?" Jada smiled. "May I take your coat, ma'am?" The woman did not answer. She was already gone, invisible. A black girl in a service uniform at a white country club wedding. No one saw her. No one questioned her. No one imagined for even 1 second that this skinny child hanging coats in the foyer was carrying enough evidence in a leather satchel to bring down the groom and send him to federal prison. Invisibility, Jada realized, was not a weakness. It was a weapon. When the ceremony began, Jada watched through a crack in the ballroom doors. She saw the string quartet. She saw the white roses. She saw Brooke Harrington gliding down the aisle in a dress that looked like it was made of starlight. And she saw him. Garrett Ellis, Leon Kramer, Grant Evans, whatever name he wore today, standing at the altar with that smile, that perfect practice predator's smile. The officiant opened his book. Jada reached behind the coat rack. She pulled out the satchel. She unzipped it. She took the USB drive in her left hand. In her right hand, she held her mother's letter, folded, soft, stained with tears that were old. She whispered, "I'm here, Mama. I made it." She pushed open the ballroom doors. Security moved immediately. Mike, the thick-necked head of the detail, stepped into her path. "Miss, staff aren't allowed in the—" Jada walked straight past him. He grabbed her arm. She turned, looked him dead in the eye, and said loud enough for the nearest guest to hear, "Take your hand off me. I have information about a federal crime." Mike froze. Donna rushed over. "She's just a volunteer. I'll handle this." But Jada was already in the aisle. 300 faces turned toward her. 300 pairs of eyes, confused, offended, some already reaching for their phones. And Jada Thompson, 14 years old, opened her mouth and spoke the words that stopped the world. But what she said and what happened next, that's something you need to hear for yourself. "Stop this wedding." The words hit the ballroom like a thunderclap. The string quartet stopped mid-note. 300 guests froze, forks half raised, champagne glasses suspended, whispers dying on painted lips. The only sound was the echo of a 14-year-old girl's voice bouncing off crystal chandeliers. Jada stood in the center aisle, skinny, shaking, wearing a catering uniform that was half a size too big. Her braids were coming loose from the humidity. Her sneakers squeaked on the marble floor. She was holding a leather satchel in one hand and a folded letter in the other. And she was looking directly at the man standing at the altar. Victor Harrington shot to his feet. His face was purple. "Security, Get this child out of here now." Mike and two other guards moved toward her from 3 directions. A woman in the second row clutched her necklace and said, "I knew it. I told you they'll let anyone in these days." A groomsman near the altar laughed and shook his head. "Is this a joke? Somebody grab her." Nobody grabbed her because Jada was already speaking. She looked past the guards, past the billionaire, past every silk-draped, pearl-wearing person in that room, and spoke directly to Brooke Harrington. "Ma'am, my name is Jada Thompson. I'm 14 years old. I came here from Baltimore, Maryland, on a Greyhound bus. The man standing next to you used the name Grant Evans to steal a fortune from my mother, Lena Thompson. She was a nurse. She worked years to save that money. He took every dollar. And when she had nothing left, when she could not feed me, could not pay rent, could not look my grandmother in the eye, she drove to the Patapsco River, and she never came home." Jada's voice cracked. One fracture, one heartbeat of silence. Then it came back harder than before. "My mother is dead because of that man." The ballroom went so quiet you could hear the candle flames bending in the air conditioning. Brooke's bouquet trembled in her hands. She turned to the groom. "Garrett, what is she talking about?" Garrett Ellis laughed. It was smooth, immediate. The laugh of a man who had practiced dismissal like a concert pianist practices scales. "Brooke, sweetheart, I have never seen this child in my life. This is obviously some kind of scam." "Victor, can we please?" Jada cut him off. Her voice carried like it was wired to a speaker system, but it was not. It was wired to years of rage. "You've never seen me? Then why are you sweating through a $5,000 suit right now? And why did your left hand just move to cover the scar behind your ear? The crescent-shaped scar my mother described in the letter she wrote the night before she died." The room turned to the groom. His left hand was in fact raised to the side of his head, frozen there, like a man caught reaching for a weapon he did not know was visible. Brooke stepped back. "Garrett, what scar?" Jada opened the satchel. She pulled out a photograph and held it high. "This is you in Charlotte. Name, Greg Ellis. You stole a fortune from Sharon Miller." Another photograph. "Atlanta. Gerald Evans, a fortune from Linda Brooks." Another. "Tampa. Graham Ellis. Another fortune from Deborah Wilson." Another. "Raleigh. Gavin Evans. Another fortune from Karen Bailey." Each photo landed like a bomb going off in slow motion. Each name hung in the air like smoke. The guests sat paralyzed, mouths open, phones rising. The collective realization spreading through the room like a cold wave. Jada held up the final photo. Not a conman's alias, not a fake name from a fake life. A woman smiling, wearing nurse's scrubs, tired eyes, warm face, braids done fresh on a Sunday morning. Baltimore. Grant Evans in one life. My mother, Lena Thompson. Jada looked at the groom. Her voice was steel-wrapped in velvet. "Your real name is Leon Kramer. Born in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Prior conviction for check fraud. Every alias you've ever used starts with GE because you're too arrogant to change the monogram on your cufflinks." 300 heads turned to the groom's wrists. Gold cufflinks. 2 letters engraved in elegant script. GE. Brooke looked at the cufflinks, then at the photographs, then at the girl. She stepped away from the altar. Leon Kramer's mask did not slip. It shattered. His charm evaporated. His posture collapsed. His eyes, those practiced, sparkling predator's eyes, went feral with panic. He ran. He turned and sprinted for the side exit, crashing through a candelabra, shoving his own best man to the floor, tearing across the ballroom like an animal escaping a cage. That was all it took for years of lies to collapse under the weight of one girl's truth. But he was not going to make it far, because Jada Thompson had not come alone. Leon Kramer burst through the side exit and into the sprawling grounds of the Woodland Country Club. Manicured hedges, stone pathways, a rose garden that cost more to maintain than most families spend on groceries in a year. He sprinted across the lawn with the desperate, graceless stride of a man who had always planned his exits, but never imagined one would come like this. He had a bag in his rental car. He always kept a bag, cash, a passport under a name no one in that ballroom had ever heard, a burner phone with one number saved. He had done this before. Not the running, not exactly, but the vanishing. He was good at vanishing. He had built an entire life around the ability to become no one in under an hour. The parking lot was not far away. He could see the rental car. Silver sedan backed into the space nearest the exit, just the way he always parked. Always ready, always one step ahead. He reached into his pocket for the keys, and then he saw them. Two unmarked black SUVs parked side by side at the country club gates, doors already open, four figures in dark tactical vests fanning out across the parking lot. With the calm, practiced movement of people who had done this many times, FBI Special Agent Rachel Bennett stepped forward, badge raised, voice flat, official and final. Leon Kramer, you are under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and interstate fraud. Do not move. Leon stopped. His shoes skidded on the gravel. He looked left. Agents. Right. Agents behind him. The ballroom doors exploded open and guests poured out onto the terrace. Phones raised, recording everything. 300 witnesses. 300 cameras. Nowhere to run. Nowhere to vanish. No new name that could save him. For years, Leon Kramer had relied on one simple truth. People are too ashamed to fight back. The women he destroyed were too embarrassed to go public. The police were too overworked to care. The system was too slow to catch him. He had counted on silence and shame the way other men count on paychecks. He never counted on Jada Thompson. And then Leon did something that no one, not Bennett, not the agents, not the 300 guests with their phones, expected. He turned around. He walked back toward the ballroom. Not running this time, walking slowly. His face twisted into something between rage and disbelief. He walked straight toward Jada, who was standing at the edge of the terrace, still holding her mother's satchel. He grabbed her by both shoulders, his fingers dug into her arms. His face was inches from hers. This grown man towering over a 14-year-old girl. His eyes wild, his teeth clenched, his voice shaking with fury. You stupid little girl, you have no idea what you've done. Do you understand? You've ruined everything. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Brooke screamed. Victor Harrington shouted something. Phones recorded every frame. Jada did not scream. She did not pull away. She did not cry. She looked up at this man who had sat across from her mother at dinner tables, who had kissed her mother goodnight, who had whispered promises into her mother's ear, while his hand was in her mother's wallet. And she held his gaze with the stillness of someone who had already survived the worst thing that could ever happen to her. I did what my mama couldn't, Jada said. I stopped you. Her voice was not loud. It did not need to be. Every person on that terrace heard it. Every phone captured it. And in that moment, the entire balance of power in the universe shifted from a man who had spent years taking everything from vulnerable women to a child who had nothing left to lose and nothing left to fear. Agent Bennett was there quickly. Two agents seized Leon's arms and wrenched him away from Jada. He was forced to the ground, face pressed against the same gravel that lined the driveways of the mansions he had always pretended to own. Handcuffs clicked shut. "You have the right to remain silent," Bennett said. And for the first time in his life, Leon Kramer had nothing to say. The chaos did not stop. It rippled outward. Guests shouting, security scrambling, Brooke collapsing into a chair on the terrace, Victor Harrington standing motionless with his mouth open. The string quartet still holding their instruments like they were waiting for someone to tell them what to play at the end of the world. But for Jada, the noise faded. Everything faded. She walked away from the terrace down the stone pathway into the rose garden alone. The late afternoon sun was turning everything gold, the hedges, the white petals, the surface of the ornamental pond. Her catering uniform was wrinkled. Her braids had come undone on one side. Her sneakers were scuffed from the long trip and the hardest walk of her life, the distance from the foyer to the altar. She sat down on a stone bench. She set the satchel on her lap. It was lighter now. The photos were scattered in the ballroom. The USB drive was in Agent Bennett's evidence bag. The FOIA documents were spread across the aisle like fallen leaves. Only one thing remained inside. Jada reached in and pulled out the letter, her mother's letter, folded soft from 1,000 openings. The edges were worn to cotton. A coffee stain marked the upper right corner from the morning Jada had read it at the kitchen table and knocked over Evelyn's mug. The handwriting was Lena's neat, careful nurse's handwriting, the kind trained to be legible on charts, where legibility could mean the difference between life and death. Jada unfolded it. She did not need to read it. She had memorized every word long ago, but she needed to see it. She needed to see her mother's hand in the curves of the letters, the pressure of the pen, the place where the ink had smeared because Lena had been crying when she wrote it. She read the last line. "Baby girl, don't you ever let anyone tell you your mama was stupid. She was just a woman who believed in love." Jada pressed the letter to her chest. She closed her eyes, and for the first time since the night she found that letter in a bedside drawer in a one-bedroom apartment in Baltimore, Maryland, Jada Thompson cried, not from pain. She had used up all of her pain a long time ago, not from anger. The anger had done its job. It had carried her here, fueled every spreadsheet, powered every phone call, pushed her through every slammed door and every whispered insult, and every adult who looked at her skin and her age and decided she was nothing. This was relief, the bone-deep, soul-shaking, body-trembling relief of a promise kept. She had told her mother she would find him. She found him. She had told herself she would stop him. She stopped him. "I found him, Mama," she whispered. "He can't hurt anyone else." Footsteps on the stone path. Jada opened her eyes. Brooke Harrington was walking toward her. The wedding dress trailed on the ground behind her, catching on rose thorns and gravel. Her mascara had drawn dark rivers down both cheeks. Her veil was gone. She looked like a woman who had woken up from a dream and discovered it was a nightmare. She stopped in front of Jada. Then she did something that no one in that country club, with all their money, all their breeding, all their centuries of social protocol, would have expected. She knelt, a billionaire's daughter in an expensive wedding gown, kneeling on a dirt path in front of a 14-year-old black girl in a cheap catering uniform. "You saved me," Brooke said. Her voice was barely a whisper. Jada looked at her. "I didn't do it for you. I did it for my mom." Brooke nodded. Tears fell onto the white satin of her dress. "Then your mom saved me." They sat together on the bench. Neither spoke for a long time. Two people from opposite ends of everything. Wealth and poverty, white and black, bride and orphan, connected by the same predator, saved by the same love. Then footsteps again, heavier this time. Victor Harrington, the billionaire, the man who had written a letter threatening a 14-year-old girl for daring to tell the truth. He stood at the entrance to the Rose Garden, and for the first time in perhaps his entire adult life, he had no authority in his posture, no power in his voice. He looked at Jada, at the satchel, at the letter, at this child, who had accomplished what his wealth and lawyers and influence could not, and he said quietly, "I owe you an apology that I don't know how to make." Jada looked at him. She did not blink. "You can start by believing the next black girl who writes you a letter." Victor Harrington said nothing because there was nothing to say. The girl had already said everything. On the other side of the estate, Leon Kramer sat in the back of an FBI vehicle, handcuffed, silent, watching through tinted glass as 300 wedding guests stood on the terrace recording his destruction on their phones. Agent Bennett walked into the Rose Garden. She knelt in front of Jada, eye level. The way you speak to someone you respect, not someone you pity. You did something extraordinary today, Jada. You know that? Jada nodded. Then she said, "Will you make sure the other women know? Sharon, Linda, Deborah, Karen. Will you tell them it's over?" Bennett smiled. "I'll make sure they know it was you." Jada shook her head. "No. Tell them it was my mother. Tell them it was Lena Thompson." The FBI formally charged Leon Kramer that evening on multiple counts of wire fraud, identity theft, and interstate fraud. Total confirmed stolen, over $1 million from 6 women across 4 states. Jada gave her official statement in the back of Agent Bennett's SUV, wrapped in a blanket from the country club's linen closet. When the recorder clicked off, Bennett said, "The lead prosecutor called me not long ago. His exact words, 'This is the most organized fraud case file I've ever received, and a 14-year-old built it.'" Jada did not smile. "My mama kept good records at the hospital. She taught me if you write it down, it's real. If you don't, it never happened." Brooke Harrington found Jada before she left. Changed out of the wedding dress, jeans, sweater, face scrubbed raw. She offered a private jet home. Jada declined. She offered money. Jada shook her head. "My mama taught me you don't take money you didn't earn." Brooke did not argue. She arranged a hotel room and 2 first-class Greyhound tickets. Because Jada had said quietly but firmly, "I came on Greyhound. I'll leave on Greyhound." The wedding guests, the same people who had stared at Jada like she was a stain on the marble floor, now approached her one by one as she waited in the foyer. Some shook her hand. Some could not speak. A retired judge named Barbara Thompson took both of Jada's hands in hers and said, "Young lady, I've spent years on the bench. I have never seen justice served as purely as it was today." That night, in a hotel room nicer than any place she had ever slept, Jada called her grandmother. Evelyn answered on the first ring. She had been by the phone for hours, worried about the school trip. Jada told her everything. The investigation, the bus, the wedding, the arrest. Evelyn was silent for a long time. Then her voice came through, breaking and full. "Your mama is so proud of you right now, baby. I can feel it in my bones." Jada fell asleep holding the letter. For the first time since the night she found that letter in a bedside drawer, in a 1-bedroom apartment in Baltimore, she did not dream about the river. Leon Kramer never went to trial. He pleaded guilty, not out of remorse, but because a trial would have meant every woman, every alias, every stolen dollar paraded across national television. His attorney negotiated behind closed doors. It did not help. The judge, a woman named Susan Grant, who had read Jada's case file cover to cover, sentenced him to a substantial term in federal prison without the possibility of early release. His assets were seized, money in offshore accounts, a condo in Miami purchased with Deborah Wilson's retirement savings, a storage unit in Delaware containing fake IDs, prepaid phones, and 6 tailored suits, one for each identity. Every dollar recovered was distributed among the victims' families. Sharon Miller, Linda Brooks, Deborah Wilson, Karen Bailey, and Evelyn Thompson on behalf of Lena. It was not enough. No amount of money could return what was truly stolen: the trust, the dignity, the years, the lives bent and broken by a man who treated human hearts like ATM machines. But it was something. It was validation. These women were not fools. They were not desperate. They were targets chosen, groomed, and destroyed by a professional predator. And now the world knew it. Jada's story broke first on a Baltimore local news station. A reporter named Carla Hayes had been covering romance fraud for years and recognized the case immediately. Her segment, "The Girl Who Stopped a Wedding," aired on a Tuesday evening. By Thursday, it had been picked up by national networks. By the following Monday, Jada Thompson's face was on every screen in America. In every interview, she said the same thing. "I just followed the trail. My mama left me the map." She never took credit, not once. A civil rights foundation awarded Jada a full scholarship, tuition, room, board, and books, to any university of her choice. A prominent law firm in Washington offered to sponsor her education from high school through law school. Jada accepted. She told a reporter she wanted to study criminal justice, specifically fraud and financial crimes targeting vulnerable communities. "There are a lot of women like my mom out there." She said they deserve someone who believes them the first time. Brooke Harrington used her family's resources to establish the Lena Thompson Foundation, a nonprofit providing legal aid and financial counseling to victims of romance fraud with a specific focus on women of color who were disproportionately ignored by law enforcement. Jada was named to the advisory board. She was the youngest member by far. Victor Harrington wrote a letter, not typed on embossed letterhead this time, handwritten, delivered by a personal courier to Evelyn Thompson's apartment in Baltimore. In it, he admitted that his dismissal of Jada's original letter was rooted in assumptions he was ashamed to name aloud. He pledged a large sum to the Lena Thompson Foundation, and he wrote one line that Evelyn read to her church congregation the following Sunday. "You taught an old man that justice doesn't come from power. It comes from courage. And courage doesn't care about age or color." Evelyn framed the newspaper article about Jada and hung it on the wall next to Lena's photograph, the one in the nurse's scrubs, the tired eyes, the warm smile. She told her congregation, "My granddaughter is 14 years old, and she already changed the world. Imagine what she'll do when she's older." Jada went back to Lincoln Middle School. She sat in the front row. She opened a new spreadsheet, this one for her college application timeline. Brianna and Kayla, the girls who had laughed in the cafeteria, said nothing. One of them slipped a note onto Jada's desk. "I'm sorry." Jada read it, nodded once, and put it in her satchel. The satchel was empty of evidence now, but it was not empty. It carried something heavier than photographs and court documents. It carried proof that love, even when it is broken, even when it is exploited, even when it is used as a weapon against the person who gave it, can still build something indestructible. Jada Thompson's story is not just about catching a con man. It is about what happens when the world decides before you open your mouth, before you show what you can do, before you even get a chance that you are worth nothing because of your age, because of your skin, because of the second-hand dress you are wearing and the bus ticket you bought with lawn mowing money. It is about a system that failed at every level. Police who shrugged. Federal agents who filed a tip and forgot it. A billionaire who looked at a child's cry for help and saw a threat to be crushed. And a man, a predator who spent years exploiting the one thing that should never be used as a weapon. A woman's desire to be loved. But more than anything, it is about a girl who refused to accept that the world was right about her. Every door slammed shut. She knocked on the next one. Every adult dismissed her. She built her own case. Every system told her to wait. She decided she was done waiting. Jada Thompson did not have money. She did not have power. She did not have connections. She had a spreadsheet, a leather satchel, a dead mother's letter, and the kind of courage that most people only dream about. And she won. Not because the system worked, because she worked. Because she was smarter, more determined, and more relentless than every person who underestimated her. And there were hundreds of them. Real talk. This is exactly why I told this story. You've got a 14-year-old girl outsmarting every adult in the room, and nobody says a word. Nobody gives her credit. Not until she forces them to. And let's be honest, we all know why. Because she's black. That's what makes it worse. Lena raised a whole genius and the world looked at her daughter like she was nobody. Yeah, that's not okay, never was. If this story moved you, if you believe that courage has no age, that justice has no color, that every voice deserves to be heard, then share this with someone who needs it today. In the end, Jada Thompson didn't just stop a wedding. She reminded every one of us of a truth that cuts straight to the heart. Courage has no age, no color, and no price tag. When the whole world told a 14-year-old girl she was too young, too poor, and too black to matter, she refused to disappear. With nothing but a worn leather satchel, her mother's faded letter, and a quiet fire no one could put out, she did what grown-ups, police, and even a billionaire could not. She brought a predator to justice and saved another woman from the same heartbreak. That's the real lesson here. Never underestimate the power of one determined heart. When doors slam in your face, when voices tell you you're too small, too different, or too late. Remember Jada standing alone in that glittering ballroom, voice shaking but unbroken. Real strength isn't loud or rich or connected. It's the decision to keep going when every reasonable person would quit. It's choosing to protect others even after the world failed to protect you. Lena's love didn't die with her. It became Jada's unbreakable map, proving that a mother's faith can outlive her and change lives she never got to meet. So if you're watching this right now, and you've ever felt invisible, overlooked, or powerless, hear this. Your voice matters. Your pain can become purpose. Your quiet courage can move mountains. Don't wait for permission to fight for what's right. Start where you are, with what you have, and never let anyone convince you that you're not enough. If this story touched you, if it made you feel seen or gave you strength, drop a comment below and tell me, what would you have done in Jada's shoes? Which part moved you the most? And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join this community. Together, we'll keep shining light on the voices the world tries to silence. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Stay strong, stay brave, and never stop believing in love that fights back.